She was always there at the edge of the frost dunes, hair like woven starlight, eyes full of galaxies, never speaking, never moving. Just watching me. And somehow, in that silence, she said more than anyone ever had. At first, I thought she was just a trick of the light. The way the moons shimmered across the ice plains made all sorts of illusions, glitches in the visual cortex, the isolation playing tricks on my mind. But no hallucination would return every single day at the exact same hour, standing in the same place, unmoving. Watching. It began on day 43 of my solo assignment on station V313. A frozen planet orbiting a dead star, a place the maps called Liska Minor. No settlements, no fauna, no communication lines. Just silence, snow, and deep time radiation pockets that could fry your brain if you wandered too far from the zone perimeter. I was here for atmospheric scans and mineral sample collection. The job suited me, lonely, detached, necessary. Just like I was. Then she appeared. She stood out against the white like a shadow out of place. Not human, couldn't be. The readings said no life. But she looked human. Skin pale and perfect. Her hair silver with streaks of soft violet, eyes that shimmered like nebulae under frostlight. She wore no exosuit, no respirator. Her clothing barely enough to protect her from the wind that could flay metal. And still, she didn't shiver. Just stood, bare-armed, in a sleeveless garment that clung to her form like ice to glass. I tried calling out. Nothing. No response. I aimed my drone toward her, but the signal went dead the moment it passed a certain point. Just static. I suited up, moved closer the next day. She remained still until I breached what must have been her invisible line. Then she was gone. No footprints, no displaced snow, just vanished. It became a pattern. She appeared each evening as the twin moons crossed paths above the third mountain ridge. I began to wait for her. Not deliberately, at first. I told myself I just happened to look up. Just happened to glance toward the horizon at that moment. But I knew. Deep inside, I knew I was waiting to see her again. And she never disappointed. I started recording sketches in my logbook, her posture, the way the wind never touched her hair. The way she watched with an intensity that made my heart forget its rhythm. I'd wake at night, breath frozen mid-chest, remembering the shape of her lips, the tilt of her head. I dreamed about her. Not just any dreams. They felt like memories, but not mine. Cold, vast corridors of ice and light, echoes of a language that hummed through my bones, not my ears. I saw planets falling into black holes, hands reaching for someone through shimmering glass, a garden of frozen crystals where two shadows stood side by side, not touching but together. She was in all of them. One morning, I found my hand trembling as I tried to pour synth coffee. I hadn't slept. I didn't want to. Because sleep brought her. And I was beginning to crave that feeling, the warmth beneath the cold, the whisper behind the silence. The way she looked at me, it wasn't passive. It was searching. Like she was trying to tell me something. And I just couldn't hear it. I stopped sending reports. What was I supposed to write? Subject appears nightly, female, non-responsive but emotionally overwhelming. They'd scrub my logs, bring me back, inject me with cognition stabilizers, and I'd lose her forever. No. Whatever this was, it mattered. The AI onboard began flagging anomalies in my behavior logs. I deactivated its emotional diagnostics. I couldn't risk it alerting command. This wasn't madness. This wasn't psychosis. I was more awake than I'd been in years. And yet, I was unraveling. Every evening, I walked to the same ridge, just close enough to see her. I whispered into the wind. Told her things I'd never told anyone. About terror. About the war. About how I watched someone I loved die slowly in a broken shuttle because I followed orders instead of my gut. About how I begged for isolation after. I thought I wanted silence. I thought I wanted numb. But now, she made me feel. That night, the moons were blood orange, a rare celestial alignment. I stood there longer than usual. The cold seeped through my suit. I ignored it. She was closer than usual. Just a few steps beyond the perimeter. Her lips parted, just slightly. I held my breath. Nothing. The wind kicked up a swirl of snow, and when it cleared, she was gone. Gone. Not a trace. I waited an hour. Then 2. Called her name, not that she ever gave me one, but the name I gave her in my mind, Solon. It meant silent in Old French. It felt right. But she didn't return. That night, the outpost felt wrong. Dead in a way that went deeper than silence. I walked the halls, called up every log, every file. I watched frame by frame footage of every appearance she made. Always the same distance, the same time, the same stillness. Until now. Until she broke the pattern. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't think. The cold outside didn't scare me. The emptiness inside did. Just before dawn, I stepped out without my suit. I don't remember deciding to. My body just moved. I stood where she had stood. The wind didn't burn. The cold didn't touch me. Something wrapped around me that felt warm. Not physically. Soul deep. Then I saw it. A trail. Barely visible. Like disturbed snow, but not from feet. More like movement that didn't break the surface. Leading away, toward the southern edge of the crater range. Somewhere I'd never gone. Somewhere the AI had marked as non-essential. But it was essential now. I didn't pack gear. Didn't think about survival. Just followed. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the silence. I was afraid of never hearing what she was trying to say. I walked for hours, following the faint, impossible trail that shimmered only when the moon struck it at a certain angle, like frost turned liquid under starlight. I wasn't thinking anymore. Just moving. My boots crunched over ancient snow, but her presence guided me, like a memory that hadn't happened yet. The wind shifted. Softer now. Like it wanted me to hear. I crested a dune and saw something I'd never seen in any scan, any map. A wide hollow in the ice plains, too perfect to be natural. In the center, a black glassy structure, part buried under layers of snow. No readings. No reflections. Just silence so heavy it pressed against my chest. And she was there. Closer than ever before. Her back was to me this time. Her hair, longer than I remembered, drifted on a breeze I couldn't feel. She knelt beside the structure, one hand pressed against its surface like it was alive. I stepped closer. The air shimmered between us, bending reality. I stopped just a breath away. "Who are you?" I asked. She turned slowly. Her eyes met mine. They weren't just eyes. They were starfields, moving like time itself bent behind her gaze. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. She reached out, not to touch, but to show. And suddenly I wasn't on Liska Minor anymore. I was inside something. A memory. A transmission. A dream. The ice was gone. I stood in a chamber made of light and crystal. She was beside me, her hand still outstretched, but younger now, or older, ageless. Around us floated echoes of people, not quite visible, not quite real, talking in colors, not words. Their energy pulsed in patterns I couldn't comprehend but somehow felt. Loss. Abandonment. Hope. Then it focused, one single moment. She stood among them, alone. Watching as they vanished one by one. Not dead. Not gone. Just, beyond. She had stayed behind. By choice. The last. Because the message had to be sent. The memory shattered like a mirror dropped in slow motion, and I was back on the ice. She hadn't moved. Neither had I. But my chest heaved like I'd run 100 miles. My vision blurred. My heart pounded with a rhythm I hadn't felt in years, longing. I understood now. She wasn't watching me. She had been waiting. She rose, and I followed her into the structure. The temperature dropped with every step, but I didn't feel cold. I felt seen. Inside, it wasn't made of stone or metal. It was alive. Walls of shifting crystal reacted to emotion, not touch. When I felt curiosity, they glowed gold. When I felt fear, they dimmed to ash. And when I looked at her, they shimmered in 1,000 shades of violet. We walked in silence, deeper and deeper. My thoughts screamed for answers. My voice stayed quiet. It felt like words would only ruin whatever was between us. Finally, we stopped before a central chamber. The walls pulsed with something ancient. Not light. Not sound. Something older. She stepped forward and placed her palm on the core. It opened like water made solid, rippling, folding in on itself, and revealed a pedestal of translucent material. Inside it floated an orb. Simple. Unassuming. Until she touched it. Then everything changed. My memories rushed out of me like breath from a drowning man. My first love. My brother's funeral. The battles. The betrayals. The nights I screamed into silence hoping the stars would answer. And then her memories poured in. Not words. Not thoughts. Feelings. Centuries of waiting. Of patience. Of calling out across the void for someone, anyone who could hear her. Not with ears. But with heart. She had never spoken because words were never her language. Emotion was. That's why she appeared only when I started feeling again. When I stopped being numb and started noticing. The universe hadn't chosen me randomly. I had answered her call, without knowing I had. She turned toward me then. Her hand still glowed faintly from the orb. She stepped closer than she'd ever dared before, and gently placed her palm on my chest. Right over my heart. And I heard her. Not in sound. But in understanding. You were never meant to be alone. I've been waiting for you to remember that. Tears blurred my vision. I didn't even try to stop them. They slid down my face, hot against the cold air. I reached up and touched her hand. I feel you, I whispered. I finally feel you. She smiled. Not like a human smile. Not with lips or teeth. With light. Everything around us pulsed with it. The chamber awakened. The structure trembled not in fear, but in anticipation. Then, suddenly, her expression changed. She turned sharply, as if hearing something distant. The glow faded slightly. She looked back at me with a warning in her eyes I couldn't decode but felt deep in my bones. Something was coming. Something old. Something buried. She stepped back, slowly, her gaze never leaving mine. And then, just like that, she was gone. No trail. No shimmer. No heat. Just silence. But not the same silence. This one was charged. Because now I understood. Her message was never just about her. It was about what was buried beneath. And about what we had awakened. I stumbled out of the structure, breathing hard, mind reeling, heart thundering in my ears. Above me, the moons had turned blood red again. And for the first time, the ice beneath my feet began to crack. The cracks in the ice weren't random. They formed a pattern. A vast, circular glyph that pulsed with an energy I couldn't measure but could feel in every cell of my body. Lines etched themselves outward, threading through the snow like veins beneath translucent skin. And at the center stood the black structure. No longer buried. It was rising. I staggered back, the wind roaring around me like a scream finally released. My comms were dead. My AI interface flickered in and out before going dark entirely. I was alone with whatever was waking beneath this planet's skin. Then she returned. Just appeared. Like she always had. Except now she glowed softly, her body radiating warmth that melted the frost where she stepped. Her eyes found mine instantly, no hesitation, no distance. She walked toward me like we had known each other forever. Like she'd never been a stranger. Like this was always meant to happen. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched as she came close enough for her light to brush my skin. It felt like being forgiven. Without words, she reached for me again, and when her fingertips touched my chest, everything around us shifted. Not physically. Time shifted. Reality bent. I blinked, and we were standing in a chamber that didn't exist seconds ago. It floated in an ocean of stars, suspended in nothingness. Beneath our feet, no ground. Just starlight. And her. Always her. This wasn't a vision. This was her truth. The place where she came from. Her memories flowed into me like a tide too big to fight. She wasn't a woman, not by human definition. She was a construct of emotion and light. Her species had long ago ascended beyond the need for bodies, language, even form. They communicated through shared memories, layered sensations. They seeded silent messages into the cosmos, not as warnings or commands, but as echoes of love, waiting for someone sensitive enough to respond. And she had been the last of them. A guardian of that echo. Left behind to protect the emotional memory of a civilization now lost to time. She had stood there, in that cold silence, for centuries. Waiting for a mind, a heart, a soul open enough to feel her. And somehow, that had been me. A broken man. A forgotten soldier. A ghost among the stars. I saw her loneliness. The unbearable passage of time. Her longing to be seen, to be understood. Not pitied. Not studied. Felt. I reached for her hand. This time, I touched first. She gasped, not in fear, but in relief. The chamber of stars pulsed around us. Light danced from our fingers, rippling outward like waves in a quiet pond. Every beat of my heart echoed into the stars like thunder. I could feel her inside me now. Not invading, joining. Her joy. Her sadness. Her patience. Her need. And mine. For the first time in what felt like forever, I spoke the truth aloud. I don't want to be numb anymore. She leaned in, pressing her forehead to mine. Then feel me. The words weren't said. They were given. And I did. I felt her. Every broken shard of her infinite waiting. Every hope she'd buried under the snow. Every moment she believed no one would ever come. I held her face in both hands and kissed her. It wasn't passion. It was completion. Like two frequencies aligning. Like two halves finally vibrating in harmony. The chamber shuddered. Not in warning, but in recognition. We were bonded now. The glyphs beneath the ice outside, those were never warnings. They were receptors. And now, with us connected, they had power again. But that power came with risk. She pulled away slowly. Her eyes searched mine, not afraid, but uncertain. The planet was responding. And not gently. Cracks widened into canyons. The ice around the outpost fractured like glass under heat. Below it all, something massive stirred a dormant machine. A mind. A presence. Her people hadn't just left behind emotion. They left behind a threshold. A test. One soul needed to feel deeply enough to awaken her. Two souls in union could awaken what slept beneath. And if that union failed, it would consume everything. She gripped my hand now, tight, trembling. For the first time, she looked scared. I whispered, "We started this together. We finish it together." Her light flared at those words. It wasn't just trust. It was faith. We turned together, facing the storm forming at the horizon. The black spire behind us was now pulsing, fully emerged, casting shadows in every direction like the hand of some sleeping god stretching across the planet. I felt it pulling at me, memories, thoughts, desires. The structure was feeding on everything I was. But she held me steady. She placed her hand to the center of my chest again, over the heart. This time, I did the same to her. And in that moment, we became one. Not metaphorically. I felt her presence inside me. And I knew she felt me in return. I saw myself through her memories, fragile, lost, beautiful in my brokenness. And she, through mine, radiant, terrifying, infinite, and worthy of love. The spire opened like a flower made of light and steel. It awaited our step forward. Whatever was inside, it called for both of us. Our connection was the key. But I felt one last whisper in her touch. A warning. If we stepped through, we could not return. This wasn't just about her people. Or their legacy. This was a rebirth. Of me. Of her. Of whatever came next. I looked into her galaxy-filled eyes and whispered the only truth that mattered. I was never alive, until I saw you. She smiled, and it lit the stars. And together, hand in hand, we stepped into the core. The moment we stepped into the core, time unraveled. There was no sky, no ground, just a pulse. Like a heart, beating in the dark. But it wasn't just the planet. It was her. It was me. It was us. We had become the message. Not just carriers of it, the embodiment of everything her people once were. Of everything I had buried. Every love I had lost. Every word I had never said. All of it came pouring into this place like light through shattered glass. I felt myself dissolve, but not die. Instead, I expanded. I saw the galaxy from above, the stars as threads of memory, each one tied to a life, a feeling, a longing left unspoken. And then, the voice came. Not hers. Not mine. But 1,000 layered voices, old as gravity, soft as breath. The echo is complete. The bond is felt. The cycle may begin again. We were inside the heart of an ancient archive, not of knowledge, but of emotion. Her people had encoded their entire civilization not in books, not in machines, but in feelings. And only a connection strong enough, pure enough, could unlock it. Our love was the key. But love always asks for sacrifice. The structure began to glow around us, expanding outward. The cracks in the ice had been conduits. The planet wasn't dying, it was transforming. And now, with the echo awakened, the entire surface shifted. Flora bloomed from the frost. Energy flowed where silence once ruled. Life returned. But something held me in place. I turned to her. She looked brighter than ever. Radiant, infinite. But fading. Her form trembled not with fear, but with truth. She stepped close again, our foreheads touching like they had in the chamber of stars. And I felt it instantly. This was goodbye. She was never meant to stay. Her purpose was always to wait. To guide. To awaken. To feel, one last time. Tears burned in my eyes. Don't leave, I whispered. She smiled, gently pressing her hand to my chest again. That same spot. Always that spot. You gave me the feeling I waited centuries to know. You made me real. The light around her began to lift, particle by particle, until she was more glow than form. Her eyes, those beautiful galaxies, held mine until the very last second. And then, she was gone. But the warmth remained. Not physical. Emotional. The core dimmed, no longer needing to pulse. It had passed its message forward. Through her. Through me. I stood in the silence again, but it wasn't empty. Because now, I understood it. Outside, the snow was no longer cold. The sky no longer colorless. The planet had changed, and so had I. I wandered back to the outpost, though it no longer felt like exile. I rebuilt the comms, reactivated the AI. But I never reported what happened. Some things aren't meant for data logs. Some things are only real when felt. I still see her sometimes. In dreams. In reflections. In the way the frost dances on the windows before dawn. And when I close my eyes, I still feel her hand on my chest. The silent message, still echoing inside me. Not a warning. Not a question. Just a truth. We were never meant to walk through this universe untouched. We were meant to find one soul who made us feel everything we thought we had lost. And I found mine. In the silence.